Welcome to our Wednesday morning devotions. We're moving well along in the book of Esther. We're in Esther chapter 8, and we'll be reading here today from verse 3. What has just happened? Haman, who has plotted the killing of the Jews, he has just been put to death himself. Things have been wonderfully turned around by the unseen God. So we're going to continue reading here in verse 3 of Esther chapter 8. Then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet and wept and pleaded with him to avert the evil plan of Haman the Agagite and the plot that he had devised against the Jews. When the king held out the golden scepter to Esther, Esther rose and stood before the king, and she said, "If it please the king, and I have found favour in his sight, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, which he wrote to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming to my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred?" Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, "Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they've hanged him on the gallows because he intended to lay hands on the Jews. But you may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring. For an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked." The king's scribes were summoned at that time in the third month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and an edict was written according to all that Mordecai commanded concerning the Jews, to the satraps and the governors and the officials of the provinces, from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language. And then we'll go down to verse 15. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown, and a robe of fine linen, and the purple, and the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honour. And then in every province and every city, wherever the king's command and his edict reached, there was gladness and joy among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. And many from the peoples of the country declared themselves Jews, for fear of the Jews had fallen on them. So today we're looking at hope for the distressed in Esther chapter 8. And we see here, first of all, the plea for deliverance. Haman has been defeated, he has been put to death, but his wicked and evil plan was still in place. And in many ways, there's a parallel here with Satan's defeat on the cross. Satan has been defeated, Colossians 2 says. He has been made a public spectacle of by Jesus and his victory on the cross. Jesus deals with the sin which separates man from God and breaks Satan's hold on people's lives. But the devil still is dangerous. He goes around like a roaring lion, seeking who he'll destroy. So although he's defeated, he still can cause such mayhem, and his plans and schemes can cause such mayhem. And here Esther pleads for indeed the king to help so that Haman's plan can be revoked. And I wonder, do we plead in the same way before the throne of grace? Do we plead for those who are facing destruction, those who are facing judgment? If you're a Christian, are you burdened for the lost? Are you praying that as these messages go out in the devotions, as the messages go out in midweek talks and Sunday services from the different churches, are you praying that the hearts of your neighbours, your family, your community will be turned to God in these days? We need to plead with the passion of Esther before the throne of grace. And Esther has confidence here. It's based on the relationship she had with the king and how she knew the king. And we can be confident when we know Christ ourselves. So the plea for deliverance, and then the decree for deliverance in verses 7 to 14. Decrees from kings in those days, the law of the Mede and the Persians, you know that expression, cannot be revoked. What the king has decreed cannot be overturned. Part of this was from a sense that the king was seen as divine, and the king never made a mistake. And you know, we need to be those who in our lives are aware that we do make mistakes. We do change direction at times when we realize that we have been in the wrong. And so it's important to have that humility. But here, the king's decree, the law, couldn't be revoked. So the only course of action was to issue a second decree, which Mordecai composes, so that indeed the Jews can defend themselves. And there's a parallel here, since there's a decree of judgment that has gone out from God because of the sin of mankind. That man will be judged for his sin, and he deserves to be judged. In a sense, the only thing God can do is judge sin. But then there's a second decree, the decree of salvation, that God will send his Son, that those who trust in him will be brought to everlasting life. The decree to save. And that is our only hope at this time, that we will trust in Jesus, that we will trust in that plan of salvation which Jesus has died on the cross to bring about. And so this decree of salvation goes out. I wonder, have you benefited from it? Have you come to trust in Jesus? And then thirdly, we have here the joy of deliverance in verses 15 to 17. Mordecai leaves the king's presence, it says there in verse 17, clothed in such splendor, clothed so wonderfully. Such a contrast from the sackcloth and ashes that he had wore back in chapter 4 when he originally heard the decree to destroy the Jews. But now he's dressed in such riches. What a picture of the Christian. We wear our rags, spiritual rags, because of our sin. We're clothed with the royal robes of Christ when we trust in him, and we enter glory. That will be evident to us in such a wonderful way. Oh, what a wonderful picture that is. And the Jews, when they hear about this, there's such a wonderful celebration. There's great partying because of what has happened. And many people are drawn to become Jews at that time. It's an interesting, this is the period in history when the people of God, the children of Israel, first were called Jews, was at this time. Many joined them. And I wonder, does our worship lack celebration the way it should? Does our worship lack joy as it should? The secret is fully understanding how we have been saved and what we have been saved from. When we understand the depth of sin, the seriousness of sin, how God sees sin, what sin deserves in hell, and then understand what salvation brings us, that will bring joy to our worship, to our praise, to our praying, to our study of God's word. And when that is real, when there's such a joy in our worship, our praise, our praying, and our study of God's word, in our living, that will draw people onto Christ and salvation. Oh, have you got that? Have you that joy in your heart of deliverance? Around the same time, Nehemiah would say, the joy of the Lord is your strength. Have you that joy in your heart at this time? May God give you such grace. Amen.